My name is Sassun. I'm a partner of the energy practice of MBS Consulting. And as any other consulting company, I couldn't help myself to have a couple of slides to start the discussion. Okay. I'm just going to use it. There are 3 slides, no more than that, promise. I'm just going to use them to frame a little bit the discussion. Today we will talk about how to mainstream the corporate PPAs in the region. Okay. And we are joined by a very interesting panel. Comes and goes. Okay, now it's back. We're joined by a very interesting panel here. I will not spoil the introduction because I will not do them justice. I will let them introduce by themselves. Okay. So without further ado, let's talk about what do we see in the region. Okay. Some of you that were here this morning will recognize this slide. It's the same. We like to go green. We like to use the same slides as much as possible. Let's see it. There you go. Okay. Key message here. Capacity is growing in the region. Okay. We have projections. Those are our projections as MBS Consulting. We have projection of increased capacity in the region for renewable. That includes photovoltaic and wind. But if you throw batteries in the mix, the story is still the same. Nothing changes. However, when we look at renewable production on one side and consumption on the other side, shapes are slightly different, okay? So there is a question mark on how to match one against the other, okay? And this is, by the way, not including the load that might or might not come from data center, which will eventually change the shape in a way that I don't think anyone knows yet, okay? Question mark, okay. So as a utility, from the point of view of utilities, you essentially, what you need to do is de-risk as much as possible the PPA. Using PPAs, of course, your renewable production. However, this is not necessarily always possible. We have seen also in the Balkan region that in some cases the PPA business has not been as strong as in any other region. Okay, and we'll come to that as a question, obviously. The legacy way to do it is to evaluate the standalone project. I have a good IRR, I invest, I do a PPA, and I close the chapter. Okay, that's good enough. What we're seeing is that in some cases this is changing a little bit, or at least people are starting to move in a direction where they need to evaluate a single capacity, additional capacity, as something else that you put in your portfolio. So how the additional risk that you put in your portfolio will change compared to what you already have. So we move from a logic of single project and standalone IRR into risk or de-risking, as you want to call it, into your own mix. And this is where typically big utilities try to develop different approaches of the energy management or eventually the proposal that you go for the corporate side of it. So with this frame in mind, I would like to ask the following question. And I will start with Nikola. Since we have seen in the Balkan region development of PPA, or at least a market of PPA, which has not been, let's go it this way, as strong as the Northwest Europe side, why do we think this is the case? Is it simple structural delay? Is it regulatory fragmentation or regulatory constraints that we have in different countries that will probably create some appetite? Or is it simply that the corporate are less interested in the product as it stands today?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I will make a short introduction of myself and the company that I'm representing. My name is Nikola Gabrovski, and I'm Business Development Manager at IBEX, Independent Bulgarian Energy Exchange. In this capacity, I will be very happy to share with you some insights of the projects and new developments that we are working on, and these are all related with the topic of the panel. Of course, I would like to thank a lot to the organizers of this opportunity and to express my gratitude of being able to join the panel and the event in general. What I can start with is actually the fact that at IBEX, we are closely monitoring the market, closely monitoring the investments in the renewable energy sources, and in particular the developments in the PPA. Of course, with the information that we have, because this is something. Of course, this is with the publicly available information that we have. What we are currently working on actually is, maybe I will take this one, sorry. Some technical problems. Okay, I think now it's better. So as you may know, recently, actually in April, we launched the so-called organized market for guarantees of origin. This is one of the directions in which we are working in order to ease the investment decisions for renewable energy sources. We are currently in a phase of members onboarding, and hopefully we will be able to have the first auctions and first liquidity in the next month. We are working to contract also a market maker role with one of the members which we already registered. What we are doing with the information that we are gathering from the market is also the preparation and the diversification of the product offering, the Bulgarian Power Exchange, which is related with the investments, as Mr. Tsachev said in the introduction of this event, in the so-called BESS, so battery energy storage systems. What we are going to introduce in Q3, the third quarter of this year, is a special kind of block products on the most liquid market, the day-ahead market, which will be very useful for short-term trading of spreads that are interesting, I mean, quite important for investors in such assets. And we will announce further details on this in the following couple of months. Of course, we are also monitoring the activities in the PPA market in Bulgaria. When I'm saying market, from the perspective of the power exchange, it means the organized market for these instruments. Well, I can say that we are quite far for the necessary activities for organizing a market as standard products, etc. We made a survey last year in a way to decide whether we shall invest in a platform that rather a trading platform could be a networking platform. We studied quite in details the example that we have with our neighbors from Greece. They introduced recently such a platform. We are absolutely technically ready and aware how to accommodate such a request, and we are waiting for some signals from the market in terms of numbers and in terms of motivated requests from the key market players in order to proceed with such an investment. And this is the key message that I wanted to transmit, namely that we are quite proactive, and we proved to be proactive in the last years, but what we are waiting for is some bottom to top initiatives from the market in order to design proper products on our long-term market that we are also operating, and also to maybe add or develop our existing services in order to ease the life of the investments, of the investors and the players. So, I mean, to sum up, in our opinion, the market is evolving, but we need to have more and more activities. We need to have number of PPAs, a number of contracts that are discussed publicly in order to have some signals, price signals, and all kind of feedback needed for us to, I mean, step forward further with organizing a place for networking, for instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any take? Who wants to start?
I could
We'll try this one.
give a certain suggestion because, at least in my opinion, I think Mr. Nakos shares it. There are a few difficulties for making actual PPAs in the region, and the biggest one is the uncertainty in terms of regulation and the government actions when prices of energy reach a certain high point. Because most of the energy consumers, the industrial one and also the smaller companies, are pretty much certain that if the prices go higher, then the governments will kick in and supply compensations to everybody. And when the prices are down, then everybody is winning. So this altogether is a very big hurdle to overcome if you try to explain that consumers need to think ahead and to make decisions, long-term decisions, in order for them to secure, let's say, a fair price of their energy. So this is a thing that we need to communicate with, let's say, the Ministry of Energy here in Bulgaria, in Romania, I believe in Greece as well, that if they want for an actual market of PPAs to happen, they need to send clear signals towards the market participants what the policies are going to be in the next few years. And if they continue in the same way that we've seen them act in the last 2 or 3 years, which frankly speaking was normal because the volatility of the energy prices were unbelievable. We all have seen it. We'll have a big delay in terms of actual deals. So I would suggest that in order to validate such deals, our colleagues from the IBEX should think about setting up the option for trading companies to offer such long-term products from solar and from wind on the IBEX. So actual price levels are seen, and there is valid change for consumers. So it will be something interesting, I believe, if they're up for the challenge, because I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you for also making the point. I was actually asked before to raise the question. Turns out I didn't have to, because you essentially address it. Regulation is obviously one of the elephant in the room here. Christos, your point of view on...
Yeah. First of all, am I heard?
Seems
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay, let's go with this, and then if it doesn't work, I will take this. First of all, thank you for hosting us here. It's an honor to be in this host and in this conference. Then, presenting myself, I'm directing of Trading Operation Transformation in PPC. PPC is very active in the green transition story in the southeastern region, active in Greece, active in Romania, and also with plant investments in countries like Bulgaria, Croatia, and Italy, and many more to come. In all the variety of technologies, starting from PV, wind, and battery. Now, I'm coming to your question, Ralph, about what makes us lagging behind in terms of in terms of other European countries. First of all, the easy stuff. I think that if regulators, legislators try to harmonize all the regulatory framework with the European one, this is a very good step. The next step is to avoid legislation and regulation that disincentivize long-term contracts and PPAs, and we see such things happening in these regional markets. Okay, energy is a very specific product. It's not like any other product, but still, PPAs are a hedging instrument. It's a hedging instrument for the off-takers. It's a hedging instrument for the renewable developers. You presented some slides about the evolution of renewable capacity in the region, and besides being numbers, how are they going to? They have to be financed. How they will be financed? PPAs, other than CFDs, which is another story. I think it has been covered in the previous panel. Other than CFDs, it's the PPAs, it's the market that will drive this. And in PPC, we do believe in this. We do believe in the green transition, not as a welfare story, but as an actual and living example and paradigm, because right now we are on a level of 6.2 gigawatt of renewable capacity in all countries in the region, and we're about to double it in 3 years' time. And this is something that we demonstrate our willingness to act as a regional utility, and we demonstrate our willingness to be there, part of this story, and we understand that we can't do it without PPAs. Then I think that there are also few things more, and I shall pass the baton to the other speakers as well. We are now in a position that the fundamentals, the economics, prove that, at least with this price of gas, we're very close to cost competitiveness of the renewables with batteries. So this is something, this is a fact. So the market is evolving, and the marginal capacity expansion unit is renewables and batteries. So this is something that gives us the light of what will be the future cost of electricity, either way or another. Either the green transition will not happen, but if it happens, we have the price signal. So this is a message also to the off-takers that whatever whatever happens in the short term, long term, if you engage yourself in a long-term contract, this will be grosso modo the price, and you will be quite close to the actual cost of renewables and storage. So I think this is kind of a relieving condition when you have to decide and take commitment in a long-term contract. That you are not going to be out of the market, because most of the off-takers, their real anxiety is that they will lose market relevance. So they will lock in a cost that it will be in a way passed or circumvented by the markets. But this is PPAs. PPAs are not actually, it's not only cheap and competitive, it can be also volatility killers. And this is something that I want to convey this message to the audience as well. It is something to keep in mind when we talk about PPAs.
Good point.
They work in a kind of complementary, but also competitive way to the wholesale markets. So they're different things. They do different stuff. Wholesale markets are doing one part of the job, and PPAs will do the other part of the job, and they will continue like that. So for the moment, I think
it's a very interesting point about PPA killing the volatility that it's counterbalanced by renewables. Daniel, trader point of view, what are you seeing? Let's first get the mic on.
Yeah, is it working? No?
Yeah, or not?
Can you hear me? No? Yeah, okay. My name is Daniel Titov. I am a country manager for Czech Republic and Slovakia at ACT Group. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for getting this event together. It's an honor to be here. We're also happy to be the general partner for the 4th consecutive year, supporting a great platform for discussion and action, getting together about renewable energy. We're also a proud and official sponsor of green energy for this event, showing that sustainability and renewable energy is not just something that we talk about, but it's something that we really act on. Maybe just a slight introduction of who ACT is. It was started by our 2 co-founders 15 years ago in a small office near Amsterdam canals, with the idea of connecting renewable producers and giving them a market access and providing liquidity to end buyers. Now, 15 years later and more than 500 employees, we have offices spanning US, Europe, and Asia, supporting corporates not just in Europe or producers, but worldwide for their decarbonization and renewable energy goals. My view on the demand, let's call it like that, in South and Eastern Europe is we actually see quite a lot of the demand from corporates to decarbonize, to procure renewable energy. And here's the issue with, let's say, the transparency and regulatory environment, which was discussed, that they do not want to commit to something that maybe in 5 years will have a negative effect on them. So we see the product that is the most popular in South and Eastern region being mid to long-term geo contracts. So simply guarantees of origin to really show, let's say, traceability of their energy, really seeing a big push from Western Europe to catch up in South and Eastern Europe. And I have to say, in the last 5 years, what took in Western Europe 10 to 15 years, South and Eastern Europe caught up in 5 years. And we're seeing increased demand, really decarbonizing not just small and medium industrials, but really multinational companies pushing that are local to South and Eastern Europe, really pushing to be green. But that is how I'm seeing it from my perspective.
Excuse me, can I ask you a question from a professional trading company point of view? What's your take for the fair price of the guarantees of origin in the short to mid-term or even the long term, having in mind that, for example, Bulgaria is not yet a part of the European market, but we are hopefully going to be soon. So I think it's going to be interesting for everybody to know what are your expectations towards the pricing of the guarantees of origin.
Of course, now Bulgaria is almost there.
Yeah,
but it took
for the
some
last
time.
few years.
Yes, it is a joke that we have internally as well. I mean, fair market price is where the supply and demand meets. We had incredible volatility in the market a few years ago, and since then the prices have stably come down with more, let's say, energy sources being connected and built, which allowed many more companies to decarbonize and start thinking about this as a really active strategy. And also once you start your renewable energy procurement, you don't tend to back out of it. From our experience, we see that they don't. So I believe that actually the prices that they came down gave a lot more opportunity in a lot more cost-effective way to decarbonize. Of course, a lot of it, I would have to say, a very interesting point is that many big multinationals, your Microsofts, your Apples, they are driving their supply chain to decarbonize as well, because it has an impact on them, which will continue being more and more. We have a very famous example of IKEA that requires 20% of your renewable energy to be, 20% of your energy to be renewable. And it drove thousands of suppliers to really start thinking about this. So I think as long as the prices remain affordable and non-disruptive to the business, we will see more and more demand, which will continue the...
Do you have an expectation when the demand is going to meet the supply? I think now the supply is higher than the demand, right?
Yes, the supply is indeed higher now.
What would you say in a few years it would meet it, or?
Well, we have, of course, 2030, I think, will be a big point within EU and for many countries, for many companies, to really think about it more seriously. There was an unfortunate, let's say, step back from European Union, moving from stricter CSRD rules to the omnibus package, where many companies will not fall under the scope to really start calculating their emissions and start thinking about their, let's say, scope 2 and impact in general of their manufacturing or their operations. But I think it's very important for companies to still do that, even if you now are no longer part of that. Actually, my colleague in the panel after me will be talking about exactly this topic. I think 2030 we will see quite a lot of change in the market and significantly increased demand.
Marc.
Yes, is it working?
Seems so.
Yep, so I'm representing Rezolv Energy. We're one of the largest independent power producers in the region with 2 gigawatts of wind and solar under development and construction in Romania and almost 250 megawatts of solar under construction here in Bulgaria. So I agree very much with what the other speakers are saying, but I'd like to make a couple of points. I think on the PPA side, I don't think it's all doom and gloom in respect of PPAs in the region. I think there are different sorts of PPAs, and the 10-year, maybe pay-as-produced PPA that you're seeing have seen in many Western European countries, yes, that sort of PPA is probably limited in application at the moment in the region, which is a less mature market. But there's a lot of demand, as you were saying, for green solutions, and I think suppliers like us and other developers of renewable energy, it's important to meet that demand as it is now, and not just push what we've done in other countries. So I think we see a lot of demand for shorter term solutions because of that volatility and unwillingness to commit to long-term solutions. So if you are able to offer a shorter term PPA, maybe for smaller volumes as well, so people aren't going to commit to hundreds and hundreds of gigawatt hours, but they'll commit to a smaller volume for a shorter term, then there's definitely a market already in the region. So it's incumbent on renewable energy suppliers to be able to offer products that demand. And as you were saying, there's a lot of demand by ultimate producers from their supply chain. And there's a lot of supply chain in all sorts of industries in the region. And for example, the automotive sector is very well represented in the region, and the large automotive manufacturers are trying to encourage their supply chain to decarbonize. So if we can offer solutions to that supply chain, then that's something that drives the PPA market. But those are going to be smaller PPAs, maybe with corporations which are less sophisticated than the large multinationals who've driven pan-European demand. But that demand is there, and we have to be able to craft solutions that meet it. The other element to PPAs in the region is that cross-border element, and the development of the guarantee of origin market in the region, I think, is very important to enable us to do more cross-border PPAs so that the region can play into that broader European demand. And so for Rezolv, we've done a cross-border PPA with our project in Bulgaria, an anchor PPA for Ardag glass and metals, and they're supporting the Bulgarian project with for their production sites in Germany, in the expectation that the geo market will be operational soon. So I think it's definitely not doom and gloom. It's just being flexible as a producer to meet the local demand.
Excellent point. Let's deep dive a little bit on this concept. You guys mentioned geos detached from the supply. We mentioned. Promise I didn't make it.
What's that?
I was standing still. Promised. We mentioned geos detached from the supply. We mentioned shorter-term PPAs, and most importantly, we mentioned that the standard approach we have seen so far of a typical pay-as-produced solar PPA, for example, it's probably a legacy to some extent, or at least may fit some demand, but not all of them. So the discussion we are hearing in the market is about where the structuring of the optimal supply will go. Okay, hybridization of products, geos detached, batteries in the mix. In your opinion, how does the optimal supply contract look like? Does it still work? Let's use the mic. The price. There is a problem with the frequency. No worries.
Maybe, Ralph, maybe we'll go the other way around now.
Yeah, I will definitely go the other way around. Yes. Okay. Let me start again, because I don't know how much you heard about that. So you guys mentioned geos detached from the supply. You mentioned the demand shifting more or less the way you shape a PPA and so on. in your opinion, since the market is starting to talk about more and more, and this is valid for this region, but I would say for the whole Europe, to be honest, since the market is starting to talk more and more about mixed solution, mixing, I don't know, solar with wind or batteries in the mix, or hybrid solution, shorter term PPAs, pay as consumed or pay as produced, and that kind of stuff. Where is the market going, in your opinion, and how should look like in terms of what do you guys will supply to the optimal customer? Tough question. Who wants to take it?
If you want to pass the mic down, I can start.
Let's do it this way, Marc.
Okay, so two points on that. First, in terms of geos divorced from supply, I think selling geos, buying geos is a very legitimate trade, but it's very different from a PPA. I think they're quite different things. So when you have an unbundled geo solution, you don't know where your geos are coming from. Usually they could be from old hydro in Norway, etc. So it's what is the company trying to achieve, which is buying the clean energy solution? Is it looking to generally buy some form of matching its electricity consumption with the supply, or it's looking for something closer to the production? So what we are selling as a power producer is, even if it's a virtual power purchase agreement where the supply is not directly linked to the consumption, the volumes that are subject to the PPA are linked directly to guarantees of origin from that particular project. And by supporting that project, you're supporting the rollout of additional low carbon energy in Bulgaria, in Romania, etc. And you're getting the guarantees of origin in return. So it's what is called in the industry additionality. It's guarantees of origin linked to a specific project that enable, that's PPA enables that particular project to be put on the market. So by doing a PPA, you're enabling that project, and that's a very different transaction from buying geos generally. So that's what, as a power producer, we're offering in terms of when we get the question about what's a PPA compared to guarantees of origin. The second point on, I think, the optimum solution, absolutely, hybridization of technologies, whether it's through a single project or through being able to offer a combination of wind and solar volumes from different projects, because you can show all sorts of graphs, but effectively, if you are supplying solar and wind and potentially batteries in the mix, though there is a cost element to that, then you're getting something much closer to what the customer is really wanting. So going back to the point I made earlier, how can we give the customer what it wants? Yes, by matching solar plus wind to give a more stable generation and therefore consumption profile. That's definitely where we see things going at the moment, in a flexible package. So, in the volume and term that the customer wants.
Yes, I think this is indeed quite a difficult question, and maybe I'm speaking a little bit from a position of privilege, because ACT is the market leader for renewable energy trading and renewable commodities in general. So I do have clients in automotive that want only to buy solar, and they want to buy it local. They don't need to really commit to a PPA via me. They can just say, hey, I want a local solar guarantees of origin that can fulfill additionalities such as the age of construction, additional certifications to show that, let's say, no nature was impacted or no forests were, let's say, cut down just to build a solar power plant, just to submit. Germans love it. They always love something like that. So we can offer this without them having to commit to a PPA. The biggest issue I see in my market is the commitment really for long-term electricity offtake. With the way the, let's say, economy is looking lately, I have clients that their consumption has varied incredibly year by year. Since Czech Republic and Slovakia are quite the auxiliary countries to Germany, we have a lot of car manufacturing parts factories within those two countries, and they're very, very dependent on what your Daimler, your Volkswagen will order. And I saw 50% reduction in some of their production plants. with geo contracts, they can really be, let's say, agile with this, not overcommitting, not buying in a bad time or having to then solve selling the additional volumes that they bought. We really can work with them and give them that additionality. Maybe in some other companies they're not going to be able to provide such a service, but we are able to, whether country specific, source specific, or certificate specific, let's say like that. So that's how I see it.
My turn. I didn't have the opportunity to introduce myself, but just a few words. I'm the manager of Synergon Energy, and we're currently, I believe, the third biggest retailer in the country, in Bulgaria. We do also cross-border trading, wholesale trading, etc., with many of the neighboring countries. And speaking from actual experience, because we have about 13,000 business clients, and we have about 1 gigawatt of renewable portfolio under our management. I believe that an actual market, as long as the governments are involved in the energy transition and they're trying to be active in terms of setting up prices in different periods of the year or throughout the whole year, I do believe that the only real volume PPAs could be made between producers and the government bodies that are providing the subsidies for the business clients. Because just out of thinking, if you're a medium company and you're faced with a lot of uncertainties, because you know there are regulatory uncertainties, market uncertainties, all the ways that are seen in which any business could fluctuate. As Daniel said, 50% difference between year-to-year consumption on a producer point of view. So you will not act having in mind that you have the experience that shows that if something goes really bad in terms of pricing, your government is going to come behind you. So I do believe that if there is an actual chance for a decent volume PPA, it should be devised a scheme between producers and investors in renewables, and storage, etc., and the government, because as you heard in the beginning, our government is also thinking about investing in creating, I think Mr. Tsachev said, a storage that would be able to store up to 60,000 megawatts of energy, which will be a government-owned asset. So in this way, it will be very hard for an investor to compete with the government on the other side. So there should be some kind of decision made in order for the business to work with the government to come through and push towards the green transition.
Well, you asked what is let's say, the most sexy PPA structure that you can find in the market nowadays. I shall say that two mottos and one keyword for me on that particular question. First one is that there's no one size fits all regarding PPAs. Then combined to this, I shall say origination is back in the sense that origination now means trying to understand, trying to identify clients' need, customer needs, and then bring a solution that fits best to your interest. And having said that, then the keyword is integration. I mean, we're talking about long-term instruments, whether that be 2 or 3 years or even 10 years, but still it's long-term. Then the key word is integration. You have to be integrated into technologies, you have to be integrated into geographies, markets, and you have to diversify both your resources that will feed in the PPA and also your offtake. From the generation side point of view, we know what the resources are, but when it comes to the off-takers, then we can see a lot of variety in off-takers. We have green pioneers. We have the guys that want mostly GOs, and they are willing to pay a premium to have them in place now for the next 10 or even 15 years. They are a part of the demand. We have energy-intensive industries that they want to have a hedge, they want to have access to cheap electricity, but still they don't want to lose market relevance, otherwise they cannot compete with their rivals. We have data centers which are a demand source on their own. We can have also something, the 24/7 stuff, still very fancy, very new, with a lot of challenges ahead, but still we have such kind of demand as well. And we can also have a kind of diffusion of PPAs in the retail market or even in the small buyer market by multi-buyer PPAs, by kind of people having coalition of consumers together in order to make a hedge, make a risk, and this will help them to do this. So there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of kind of new tools and instruments, as long as there is a true discussion between one side and the other side and the middlemen, and the middlemen are those that can effectively manage the risk, because there's a lot of risk there, both in terms of tenor, both in technologies, both for the market exposure. So you need to have this kind of integration, you need to have this kind of resource diversification, which it's effectively a risk management technique, because you see, battery is a natural hedge for PV. If you are afraid of the cannibalization, you can invest on the right, with dimensionalizing properly, and then you can invest in battery, and then you know that you will never lose. Maybe you will never earn too many, but you will never lose also. So you have what is the target? The target is to stabilize revenue, to stabilize cost, to be kind of relieved by what will happen the day tomorrow or the day after tomorrow and the years to come. So I think if everyone does his job properly, then PPAs will be kind of the new paradigm also in the Balkan region. And if we do our job properly, everybody does its job properly, then I think we will catch up even with Spain.
Thank you. So I'm personally a market man, so I strongly believe that most of the issues will be solved by the market and by the natural mechanisms of the market. Where is the role of the regulations here? In my opinion, their role is in helping the emerging markets to develop, and that's it. Not to replace some market mechanisms, and not to deal with hedging and reducing risks. What I wanted to say is that we had a very good example with the introduction of the Bulgarian day-ahead market. In 2016, there was a regulation at the time, pushing and guaranteeing certain level of liquidity, and this was in order to educate the market players and to help this market to reach certain level of liquidity, certain share of the total consumption, And after that, these commitments expired in 2021 in January, and then, I mean, everything is kind of happening with the natural effects of meeting the demand and the supply. I heard here that, I mean, whether the demand is meeting supply or vice versa, they are always meet each other. The price is important here. This is about regulation in my perspective. What is dangerous for the market, and I'm speaking now in Bulgarian market, is to have buyers that are not caring about the price, or sellers that are not caring about the price because they are not contributing to the price formation. So we have to be very careful with the compensations, various types of compensations, because they have a lot of effects in many places, and they have to be really temporary and really focused on achieving some target. And once the target is achieved, they should be stopped. And yeah, this has already been said that, of course, compensation is a tool for reducing a risk, and the willingness of reducing the risk for the consumers is affecting directly the interest towards the PPAs. And this is, I think, really clear for everybody. So we are living now in this situation. Concerning the guarantees of origin market, of course, we are observing now in Bulgaria a big oversupply of these guarantees. We have prices like few cents. And the remedy, in my opinion, in this case, of course, is a bit of help of the regulatory authorities in order to push these ESG policies, indexes, etc. But on the other hand, the integration is the other direction. There we should do our homework, because we are still not an effective member of the European Hub and the EIB. So we are lacking this part of the demand side of the market. That's why the market is really, I mean, a small one with a price that is artificially low. This is what I can see. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, all. Perhaps, as you've seen, we have a very interesting panel, strong panel. They don't hold back on opinions. Perhaps, is there any question that you want to take advantage and ask? Anyone? Please. Would you like the mic?
Hi, thank you. That was really interesting. Marc, I think you were talking about the demand for sort of shorter and smaller PPAs. Is that being matched by what suppliers are willing to offer? Because that is a bit of a compromise if a supplier, wants that kind of long-term certainty. You'll take it.
I think not entirely. I think that's incumbent on us as suppliers to match that demand. I think traditionally, certainly from the independent power producer side as opposed to the utility, projects are driven by project financing requirements and the need for a certain degree of committed offtake for a long period of time to match the financing of the project. But it's incumbent on us, and it's one thing that we work on, is lenders who are financing projects in these regions need to understand the reality of this region and the demand for PPA. So as a developer, if you can build up a portfolio of different offtake solutions, you can mitigate the risks that the lenders are looking to be mitigated and therefore meet those requirements. So I think it's more work probably on our side, but it's a work in progress, but it's certainly something that's being done, yes.
Anyone else?
Maybe one quick question, very quickly, and then I'll give the mic to Nikola here and to Christos, because Christos, you know, PPC was less than 10 years ago a coal-heavy utility, state-owned, slow, very far away from a green-minded company. And now you seem to be a champion of renewables. There's quite an impressive turnaround that has been ongoing for the last 5-6 years at least. So what is your take strategically? I mean, is it going to be PPAs that are going to be driving the market forward, or is it going to be, let's say, utilities or IPPs getting bigger and trying to do more complex trading deals with, you know, utilizing their portfolios that are going to be mixed, I guess, hybrid solutions for industrial consumers perhaps, and maybe for end customers?
Okay, I think I can ask from here. Yeah, indeed, we were talking about a turnaround story. As regards your question, well, PPAs, as I said, have to be part of the equation. And then it is a matter of how you internalize risk. And it is a matter how the PPA market is evolving. So we have just seen the last, I think now PPC has already published a product in Greece which is 2 years fixed price. So with the exposure to these new technologies, which are not, they don't have a variable cost behind them, we can see also a different kind of demand behavior by the consumers, whether they be on the very retail side or whether they be on the very large businesses, let's say. So we expect and we think that, and we are part of taking that kind of risk. That's why we're building a green transition story, because we actually believe that there will be demand from consumers for such kind of products, for such kind of electricity that's going to be sourced by renewables. So yes, and if this is to happen, and banks are already involved in the financing of these projects, then PPAs have to be there. I mean, it is part of the equation. Sometimes, as the previous speaker said, you can have different tenors, and so that changes a little bit the exposure, but still it's PPAs from one side and PPAs from the other side. So I'm not an oracle, but what I can say for sure that PPAs are here to stay, and PPC believes that as well.
Thank you. If no one else. I have a question. There was talk about guarantees of origin, and one of the problems faced by market participants is lack of harmonization across the EU and cross-border trade. So my question for any one of you who is brave enough is, what's your view on Europe moving to full consumption disclosure on GOs?
Sorry, what do you mean by full consumption exposure? I mean, what do you mean by that?
So basically every single megawatt, regardless the source, has to be disclosed. Every single consumed, yeah.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, on consumption.
I think, in general, guarantees of origins were made for disclosure to begin with. Again, in general, the European market is quite harmonized. There are less members that are not part of, let's say, AIB hub than they are. So we have a few big countries like Poland, Bulgaria, Romania that will join, and few in the Balkans. But it's a matter of time for them to join this. If Europe will indeed, or EU will indeed commit and really keep to the full disclosure, it will only, let's say, improve the situation for, at least from the side of producers. We will see how that will impact the price and if we will have enough supply, which arguably we can say right now we don't, well, factually. But with sources like also nuclear, where it is a zero emission or low carbon emission energy source, it is possible. I think what is quite important now is for EU markets to harmonize of consuming, let's say, guarantees of origin, matching the production and consumption. Many European countries, actually, as of even last year, they've laxed the rules where you can use previous year guarantee of origin for this current year, which is not really helping the pricing, it's not really helping the producers, and it's a bit strange, let's say, consuming something that was produced a year before, consuming it for this year. So in many countries we have that, but we have some big players like Italy or Netherlands or Belgium where they laxed the rules to make it a bit more affordable for the end clients to buy, but I don't think these countries should lead with example and not to save some marginal amount of money. It's not going to be a big decision, decisive factor on their business. It's just giving a less transparency to the market and slightly discrediting the guarantees of origin system, which we don't want.
I think we need to make room for the next panel, but before that I will ask you to... Mic is working, there you go. I would ask you to join me in thanking the excellent panel here.